Hello, 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 and welcome to Energy Ergonomics. Today, we are going to be talking about soundboard and Lunar authority in human design. And definitely, if you are joining us, please say hi in the chat. Let us know you're here. Post a comment. This is going to be an interactive session with Q&A and two opportunities for Q&A. And we're so excited to have you and answer your questions. My name is Mélissa. This is a brand new channel. So like, subscribe, support us. We are going to be continuously sharing content around how we flow within ourselves, how we flow within other people or with other people, and how we flow with the universe. The anchor for that is studies of birth charts, right? And so today, human design is the one we're focusing on. And we have a special guest, Miss Jaclyn Michelle from Interior Creature.
Hey.
And while I have Jaclyn up here, I'll just want to make a brief note about collaboration. You'll be seeing more things coming through from us. I'm going to say we're human design besties. That's what I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Besties and human design and otherwise.
And otherwise. And it's so important because both of us, we both do readings. We both have group coaching programs. We both have memberships as well. And we are here in collaboration because it's so important that as you go on this journey of exploring yourself, you have different resources to tap into, and you have different viewpoints that come from different beds of experience. Also, I just want to put in a quick note for Jaclyn's programs. I have been privy to, I think, all of them at this point.
Either in their birth or,
Yeah, and I'm getting ready for Catalyst next. And so definitely check her out. She's Mélissa, triple approved. And with that, I will let you start. I see we have some viewers on. So definitely, if you are here, say hi. If you can hear us, say hi, comment, let us know that that you can see us. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if you have soundboard or lunar authority. And yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Jaclyn. Jaclyn's going to speak briefly about each of the authorities. And then I'm going to come in with some action activities, things that you can do to really get in flow with your specific authority type.
Awesome.
Authority, not type. Authority, kind
of authority. Yeah.
I'm working through that, y'all.
It's okay. My open throat is rubbing off on you. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit with the pulling up my PowerPoint. I'm a 1-3. PowerPoint is my love language. I'm a big nerd in that way. But I thought I would tell you just a little bit about myself, and about my offerings before we dive into sounding board authority, which you also may have heard of as either mental authority or environmental authority. We'll talk about why that is in a moment. And then we'll also talk about lunar authority as well. So we'll kind of talk about them back to back. But as Mélissa said, my name is Jaclyn Michelle. I built the website Interior Creature back in 2018. I've been on this journey with human design for a while. Short version of the story is I worked in a corporate capacity for about 15 years in education, both in the public and then the private sector, and kind of lost who I was in the process of doing all the things that one's supposed to do to be successful, like climbing that corporate ladder. My job basically ate my life. And I was so burnt out and so disconnected from who I was that when I ended up quitting that corporate job, not only was my body kind of in a sense of just overwork and burnout and stress, but I did not remember who I was outside of what I did for other people. And so when I was a kid, I was really into things metaphysical, esoteric. I was the kid sneaking out books from the library on tarot and astral projection and astrology, sneaking them under Sweet Valley High and the Babysitters Club. I thought I was being slick. My mom was like, "No, we knew you were witchy since you were little." But anyway, I was looking for a modality that would kind of bring me home to myself, that reminded me of things that I was naturally drawn to even as a child. And human design ended up being that system. So human design basically gives you an energetic map of who you are and what you're here to do. And that map for me, really gave me my life back and helped me come home to myself again. So at that point in time, there wasn't a lot of free resources online that felt accessible or actionable or practical. A lot of what was out there felt either very gate kept behind a price wall or a paywall, or felt just like jargony or like overly complicated. So as I started to make sense of the system for me, I've always been a writer. I was like, I want to teach and write about this in a way where other people can understand if they're going on this journey as well. So that's where Interior Creature came from. And my website, the 2 blogs on there, help about 20 to 30,000 folks a month start making sense of their own human design chart. And about at that same time, I started offering one-on-one readings for folks. And it's been an amazing journey over the past few years. I've helped over 2,000 folks get in touch with their interior creature, if you will, and start like unpacking their birth chart. So I still offer readings, but I've also expanded kind of how I work with the system in the past couple of years. So I offer readings now at 3 different entry points because I want to meet you where you are in your human design journey. So if you're brand new to it, you're kind of just learning the vernacular, the language, the lay of the land, I love introducing folks to human design. But I also love talking to people who've been in this experiment for a while and have dug into parts of their chart, and maybe they're having a hard time like seeing the forest for the trees, like putting all the parts together. Like I also offer readings for folks who kind of are ready to have more kind of like higher level conversations. I have classes that are self-paced and virtual that teach the structure and the system of human design. Again, at 2 different entry points. I'm going to talk about my Catalyst community a little bit later, but the last thing I wanted to share with you is the Karmic Studies Elevator. So it's something I launched this year. It is a 6-month container. And inside, we're doing the work, which is kind of a big part of human design, which I think doesn't get talked about a lot, is this idea of deconditioning, shadow work, like getting back in alignment, going back through all the different parts and pieces of our chart and really engaging with what we find and thinking about maybe our conditioned ideas, behaviors versus what actually feels natural and most aligned, and kind of doing that work of listening to our authority and honoring what's true for us. So anyway, that's a program I'm bringing. I'm welcoming 3 more people into the program by the end of the year. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely DM me and let me know. Anyway, finally, just in case you're a human design nerd like me and you're like, what's your type? What's going on? I'm a generator with sacral authority, but I have an overwhelmingly open chart. In fact, if you look at just my conscious personality, I'm actually a reflector. Like you have to have my unconscious design stuff to come in to actually make me a generator. But anyway, so I'm a very overwhelmingly open chart, and I'm a 1-3 right angle cross with the Garden of Eden. Last little thing, I just want to make a little note of this. My other passion outside of human design is animal rescue. I have 3 rescue dogs. I love them deeply. They are silly and goofy and funny. Right now, they're asleep in various places in my apartment, but I don't know if that's going to continue to be the case. So if you hear any sort of like barking, snorting, like fun noises in the background, that's what it is. I live in the zoo. Yeah, so I apologize in advance, but they're very sweet. I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, so I want to talk first about sounding board authority, and then we're going to talk about lunar authority. If you have lunar authority, don't tune out for the first 5 minutes here, because there's a lot of tips and tricks that you can actually apply to your lunar authority that actually folks with sounding board authority may also find to be helpful. So kind of keep an ear out because there might be things that feel resonant to you. So sounding board authority. This is the realm of mental projectors. So in human design, the way that our centers are defined determines the thing called type, what type we are. Now, generators, manifesting generators, they're only going to have sacral authority or emotional authority. Like they don't get to have what's called environmental sounding board or like mental authority. Reflectors have every center open. So we're going to talk about y'all in a moment. And manifestors just can't be wired in this way and still have that power going to their throat. So we're thinking about this projector strategy of waiting for recognition and an invitation within the context of this mental sounding board. How do we use that to make decisions? So in human design, all types, but manifestors have the word wait in their strategy. And there's a lot of unhelpful information out there on the internet, especially on Instagram sometimes, about what this wait actually means. And I don't take it as, my understanding at least, is that you're not waiting for the perfect amorphous thing to kind of come your way. And the waiting's not meant to be passive. It's not meant to be this thing where you sit back and you can't take any action until something comes to you. The way I see the wait is, especially for mental projectors, is you are waiting until you have that message from your authority that lets you know this is the right course of action. This is the thing that makes the most sense. This is the thing that I need to walk toward before walking toward it, right? So it's not reactive, it's proactive. It's making sure it like clicks, it makes sense before you step in and start, saying yes or no or kind of engaging with that decision, right? And so what's interesting is in human design, 98% of folks are going to fall into, it's roughly some sort of body level physical sensation that they're going to get, that literally it's like their self going, oh, I identify with this thing, or a rush of energy from their sacral going, oh, I have energy for this thing. Sounding board slash environmental authority is different because it's not a physical sensation. In fact, pardon me, folks with mental authority have every center from their throat, or maybe their throat might be closed, but like every center basically from the self center down open. And the deal with our open centers is all of our centers that are open, we sponge, we mirror, we magnify. We take in other people's energy, we assume it's our own, or we magnify it back to them or mirror it back to them. And it's not that we don't have our own sensations and impulses through these centers. We absolutely do. It's just that our messages our body is sending to us get completely commingled, and they're bumping up against, they get in kind of enmeshed with other people's energy and other people's messages. So for folks who have, say, sounding board authority, you might be struggling with a big decision, say career wise, say you got offered a job and you're talking about it with a colleague. If you have a colleague who's really emotionally invested in you not leaving that company, it's possible to feel their emotions in your body and have that cloud your decision making. Like you might think it's your own. So that's one of the reasons why this strategy is sometimes referred to as environment authority or environmental authority, because the thing that a lot of human design language focuses on sometimes is the deficit, not the asset. So if you're thinking about it through this lens, the authority, or the environment rather, that you are in as a mental projector when you're making your decision is critical. If you're around people who are like Debbie Downers, who are constantly worst case scenarioing, who are constantly ignoring their own authority, who, maybe are really negative or pessimistic, sometimes, again, because of the nature of how you're wired, and again, I can empathize because I'm also super open, we don't even realize sometimes where we're sponging, we're mirroring, we're magnifying, and we start letting that cloud, because those feelings are so different and not consistent in our bodies, we can let that detract and take us away from what actually makes sense. So with the mental projectors, you're going to have some combination of your head, your mind, and your throat closed. Now, it could be just mind and throat. It could be just head and mind. It could be head, mind, and throat. You're going to have some combination of those three. Those are the things that are most consistent in your body that you're going to need to listen to make a decision. So instead of asking, how does it feel? You want to put yourself in the right environment. So like everything kind of feels good. You feel like I'm in a space where I can get the clarity that I need. But you also want to try to like get your thoughts maybe out of the ether, out of your brain, or I guess like out of the, the abyss, out of your mouth into the ether. And like sometimes when you hear yourself talking, you can literally feel kind of in your brain. I've had clients refer to it as like a little brain gasm where they're like, oh, that makes sense. Like it just clicks, right? And you can see what consistently makes sense and what consistently doesn't, right? So it's going to be harder for you to have those kind of aha eureka moments if you're surrounded by people who, again, are Debbie Downers, constantly negative, nothing's going to work, or even like relentlessly positive. That can also be, because maybe there's real pragmatic concerns that you need to think through. So thinking about first, curate your environment. Who are the people that I can be around, the energies I can be around that are going to be most conducive to my gaining the mental clarity that I need. And then again, as I'm in the right space now, I need to think through and talk through my decision. Now, depends on whether it's head, mind, throat, just mind, throat. If you don't have the throat defined, I have actually had folks who maybe the speaking it out doesn't work as well. Maybe it's journaling it out or drawing it out or acting it out or kind of like rehearsing it in the head. But again, it's not about how it feels down here. It's because we've already taken care of that. We put ourselves now in an environment where like the vibes are good, right? And we can focus on, does it make sense? Is it like something that feels like it clicks, right? And so again, talking can be really helpful for most people. But if talking it out, again, it doesn't feel like you're getting the clicks, sometimes writing it, journaling, dancing it out. Like sometimes it's even like, moving around while you're drawing it out or something like that can actually give you a sense of, maybe not physically dancing, you know what I mean? But like get it, that what makes sense, what doesn't. So you're looking for the thing that like, or I guess feeling, intellectually for the thing that clicks, that just makes the most sense. And again, it's got to be something that makes sense to you regardless of who you're around. So I always say, start with the good energy. Start with the environment that you've curated. So like the vibes are good so you can get that clarity. And then you can kind of workshop it around other people. Like when you talk to the Debbie Downer, once it's made sense to you, does it still make sense? Or do they have points that you want to like take back into your good feeling environment and like work through as well, right? So it's like, who can I use as my sounding board? Who can I use as like someone to bounce my ideas off of? It also sometimes requires us setting clear boundaries. So for folks who have who are mental projectors, have this mental authority, this environmental authority, sounding board authority. Again, all refer to it all the same thing. Sometimes you almost have to set the expectation that you're in a place where you need someone to behave as a sounding board. And you can actually set the expectation for what that looks like and feels like and sounds like. Like I had one of my clients sharing with me that like she uses her husband as a sounding board. And she'll say to him, babe, I'm working something out. I'm trying to figure out what makes sense. Can you do me a favor and just echo back to me, repeat back to me what I'm saying? Maybe in your own words, but like, can you repeat back to me and like, you know, and it's hearing it sometimes out of his mouth gives her that whole, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that doesn't. And when she's ready, she might ask him to play devil's advocate and kind of argue the other side. And again, sometimes that gives her brain something to kind of consider, think through. Because remember, the mind center becomes the authority in this case. The mind is like our analysis, our synthesis, our processing. And with that center being defined, the brain is literally searching for what makes sense. What is the thing that's going to lead me to the most kind of aligned action? But it's like this intellectual, like, braingasm of like, aha, right? You can also set the expectation, like she has told her husband, and I know Mélissa talks a lot about having like communication plans with our partners, people that we work with on a really consistent basis to know how to support us when we have this authority. She'll actually say to him, like, babe, I don't want to hear what you think. Can we work through what I think? And then when she feels like she's in a space to kind of receive that, she may ask, okay, now tell me your opinion. What do you think about it? There's a lot of people, I think, who misinterpret sounding board authority as like talk it out with everyone around you, solicit as many opinions as possible. Like that can actually be too much data. Sometimes you're like overloading the motherboard, if that makes sense. So again, curate your environment, set clear expectations with who you're talking it out with, what that's going to look like. Try different modalities for that intellectual processing. And again, as you're combining this in conjunction with your strategy, keep checking in with yourself. Because as you're making decisions, say it is something about like, say you get a job offer, that's a massive life decision. This doesn't supersede or eliminate your strategy of finding recognition and making sure that you're invited. So as you're weighing, say, do I take this job offer? Check in with yourself. Does it make sense for these folks on this team to recognize me? Does this situation maybe lend itself to my expertise? Am I the most logical guide for the people in this situation for this role I'd be taking on? And when you get that job offer, again, does it make sense for me to get involved? Does it logically make sense that my involvement is sought? Like, would my guidance make sense in this scenario? And also think about the environment. Like, if I step into this team, this environment, is it going to be an environment conducive to me to get that clarity I need to help lead and help guide? Because remember, projectors, that is their role here in society. They're our guides. But again, it's got to be the right guidance for the right people at the right time. We're not, as a projector, we're not the default guide for every single person in every single situation. So we want to always couple the, does it make sense? Kind of, am I getting my little brain gasm like, ooh, eureka, alongside, am I seeing heard, valued, included? Is my involvement actively sought? And do I want to, in terms of like, does it make sense to get involved here? So again, environment needs to be good in the body. The one thing that I would share, and again, this also is something that applies to lunar authority as well, is sometimes we can get ourselves into anxiety loops or like unhelpful loops where we start like almost finding ourselves like circling and spiraling around the same point. And a lot of that time that happens when the environment was not the right one to begin that conversation. So you might even want to start by yourself. Before you even bring it to the environment with the right people. For a lot of folks who have environmental authority or sounding board authority, they get alone first, talk it out to themselves. They make a voice note, they record themselves, they talk to themselves in the mirror, they talk in the shower. And then once they feel like things are making sense, when they're kind of in just their own energy, then they take it to that community where the vibes are good, right? So again, if you find yourself in those unhelpful loops, it might be that it's not the right people or you're not ready to kind of take it public yet to do that sounding board. Okay, and then lunar authority. So lunar authority now, this is for reflectors only. And reflectors are the most unique type in human design in that every single center in a reflector's chart is open. So this a lot of times is referred to as having like no inner authority because there isn't any one center in your body that's consistent enough to be your guide to make your decision. So for you, environment is also ridiculously important. I always tell my reflectors that like you need to be a curator of who you allow access to your energy. I like to say, think about it like your VIP room. Like if I got in my 20s back when I was a little party girl. I ended up at a lot of clubs in New York where they had like a little swanky VIP room. And I always have to remind people the VIP room is small. It's small because like not everybody is meant to be in there. Now, granted, in a club, it's based on like, a lot of aesthetic, silly things. But in your life, like, who are the people that when I'm around them, I feel good? I'm surprised and delighted by the decisions I'm making. I don't feel consistently disappointed in myself. I don't find myself mirroring back behaviors that don't feel good in my body or attitudes that don't feel good in my body. And so the waiting in the strategy is giving you that breath and that space and that time to feel into the totality of your energy. And that's why the strategy is waiting an entire lunar cycle to make a big decision. Now, we're not doing this for decisions like, do I have coffee with this person? Like, we don't have time for that, right? We can't wait an entire month and be like, I will get back to you when the moon waxes full again. Like, it doesn't work that way. But for something that's massive, like, do I take that job offer? Do I put an offer on that house? Do I, oh, my house offer was accepted. Do I go for it? Like a lot of those, your body just needs more time. I personally don't find the 28-day lunar month to be a hard and fast rule. I always tell my reflectors, like, what you're really looking for is a consistent feeling of being pleasantly surprised and delighted by whatever course of action it would be, like saying yes to the job, putting the offer in the house over the course of basically a long extended period of time. So the way that reflectors are different than the other types in human design is they're considered to be lunar beings. So the rest of us, projectors, manifestors, manifesting generators, we get we're heavily impacted by the solar transit. So every day, every one of the planets in our like little solar system is moving through the heavens and moving at different paces, different speeds in their orbit around the sun, and their rotation around the sun. So folks who have those other authority types, or sorry, other types in human design, we're really impacted by solar transits. Reflectors, though, because they have this receptivity. So just like the sun, the moon itself doesn't generate any light; it reflects back what the sun is. Lunar authority for folks who are reflectors, because they're so open, they're not generating any, they're not impacting the people around them. They're being impacted. They're that receptor of all of that energy, right? And so we want to track the lunar transits. So one of the things I always tell my reflector folks to do is looking at where the moon is right now, and just know the moon changes sign, or I guess gate rather, in human design every half a day or so. The moon is going to move through every single gate in your chart over the course of a month. And so you can decide, like, if you, for example, this is the chart from one of my reflector clients. If you go through and take a look at where your energy is concentrated, like say the moon was sitting in gate 44 when the decision came up, and the moon rather moves counterclockwise around the chart, like you wait 20, 15 days, like you've gone through the majority of your gates, you've got this big gap over here. Like you don't have to wait the full 28. So I know I'm getting a little bit in the weeds here, but you're basically giving the moon a chance to sit and illuminate and like reflect light back into each one of the gates you have activated, so you can experience the decision through the lens of that gate's energy. So like through the lens of your creativity, if it's gate 1, through the lens of your sense of timing, if it's gate 9. And again, it's just giving yourself the breath and the space and the time to figure out like what feels good in my body the most consistently. And one last piece of advice I always give my reflector clients is to take a look at your chart and look at where that energy is most concentrated. Like, where do you have the most gates lit up? Because those are the centers that you might actually get clearer, more consistent messages from over the course of that month. So in this chart on the screen, for example, the self center in her chart has 4 gates activated, and the heart's got 3, which is pretty good considering there's only 4 gates in the heart center to be activated. So the advice I gave her was, think about what you want and what, you identify with as a lens through which you're looking at what feels consistently good over the course of the month. Those have the most energy concentrated there. So they might actually give you clearer answers than like that one lone gate sitting in your self center or the one lone gate sitting in your spleen. But again, with a reflector, the environment is massively critical, because just like with sounding board authority, if you're around the wrong group of people, you might be sponging someone else's emotions about the decision you're about to make, or feeling someone else's lack of energy for the decision you're about to make, and end up doing something that nets out and you feeling disappointed. That's the not self theme of the reflector, is this sense of disappointment of like, I wanted that to feel good. I thought it was going to feel good. It doesn't. And so now I'm disappointed. So we want to make sure for small decisions, you can go with what feels good in your body right now, as long as you're in company who has energy you want to emulate. And then for massive decisions, give yourself the gift, if possible, of allowing the moon to transit enough of your chart so you have a clear sense of what consistently feels physically good. This is something I'm really passionate about as well. So if you're interested, I love working with reflectors and working through the lunar transits and kind of highlighting, okay, for a big decision, what do we need to wait for? What's a good date to make that, etc. Yeah, those lunar transits are really, really important for folks with this authority. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Yeah, questions, feelings, thoughts, concerns, wonderings.
Yeah, so definitely, if you have any questions, let us know. We fully expect that this will be a smaller group, just given the percentage of these. And so
Yep.
if we don't get any questions, we'll go ahead and chat between us two. But if you have questions, I do see that we've got one or two of you here. So if you have questions, post them in the comments. Know that you can reach us at Curly Executive, at Interior Creature. These are our Instagram handles. And I'm about to go through a whole set of ways that you can activate these different authority types. But first, I would love Jaclyn to talk a little bit about Catalyst as we see if we have some questions coming through.
Yeah. So Catalyst, I have the two membership communities, my Karmic Studies, which is that really intense deep dive into the charts. But Catalyst is a community that I built because one of the things I recognized is when I was kind of first starting my own kind of spiritual journey, spiritual awakening when I was younger, it felt very lonely. Like I remember I was sharing with you, like I'd hide the books on tarot. Like I didn't have people to talk to about these things that I was like blossoming and all lit up about. And I know that's the same for adults as well. Like sometimes when you find these modalities, it's like, who can I talk to about this? So Catalyst is a community for folks that are in various places on their spiritual journey. So Catalyst Spark is for my folks that are just kind of like dipping their toe in, figuring out what modalities feel best to them. They're exploring things like astrology, like tarot, like human design, etc. And they want to be in community with other folks who like are just beginning their journey as well. So they can have kind of parallel conversations and like, find people that are also nerdy about the same things that they are. We're having our first workshop actually tomorrow for the Catalyst Spark community. It's birth chart basics. So if you're new to human design and you're like, I've tried to look at this chart, I don't quite know what all these parts and pieces mean, I'm giving like an intro level talk on like, here's how you read a chart. Where did all these parts and pieces come from? How do you understand centers, type, strategy, authority? So we're going to be doing that tomorrow. And it's like a monthly membership. We meet monthly, we have monthly workshops, and we have a monthly book club. Catalyst Fire is the other wing of Catalyst, and Catalyst Fire is also to build community. So I've been in two places. I've been in that kind of, I'm just stepping into my practice. Where are my other witchy folks at? I've also been in that place where I'm like, okay, now I'm really into my practice. Who can I talk to that also is deep into theirs? And we can have nuanced, deeper, more parallel conversations in that way. So Catalyst Fire is just for folks who are a little bit more seasoned, a little bit, deeper into their practice, who want to like take these tools and start using them in different ways. So it's less on like building the knowledge, it's more on utilization and practical kind of action. And again, we meet monthly, we have workshops. We're going to be digging in this month into like how we do shadow work with the aspects of our human design chart. We're going to be digging into various kind of parts and pieces from there. So it's just a different kind of entry point, but we come together in community for the book club. We're going to be doing The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford this month, which I'm really excited by. And yeah, so you should check it out. interiorcreature.com/catalyst. It's the little slash that goes this way. Or I don't know if they're going to invert the video. You know what I mean? It's the one that like it's down on the left and up on the right. Anyway, I'm so bad at whether that's a forward or a backslash. Anyway, interiorcreature.com/catalyst. You can check it out, see which membership community feels correct for you.
Awesome. Thank
Yay!
you. And as mentioned, if you are watching the replay, we are real people. We really do answer our DMs.
Yes.
We see them. Sometimes they end up in requests, but we answer our email. I'm way better on Instagram than email, though, real talk. But reach out.
I just learned how to do the whole, like, I just learned at a whole other inbox I didn't know about on Instagram. So like, if you ever DM'd me on Instagram and I didn't reply, I'm old. I didn't
I was just thinking
find it.
I was thinking, we're a little older now. Oh.
I know. Yeah, no, I always laugh. I'm like, oh man, now I understand why my parents felt like the first time I was using instant messenger in like middle school. They're like, what is this thing? Anyway, that all comes full circle.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section. We're giving Jaclyn a break, but she will be back at the end in case we do have any questions. Again, if you have any questions as we continue to discuss these beautiful authorities, Soundboard and Lunar Authority, feel free to post them. I am Mélissa Peng, and I'm so happy to dig into how we feel into these authority types, how we heal so that we can get more in alignment with our authority, and how we flow with them day to day, and then how we will use them in business. Just a little bit about me. I also had a whole corporate journey. I spent a decade in corporate as a director of marketing in very large corporations. So we're talking about the NBC Universals, Macy's, Procter & Gamble's of the world. And then I started on the journey of helping women create businesses in their areas of passion. I'm a manifesting generator, 3/5 sleeping phoenix. So I am someone who likes to reinvent myself. And a year ago, I went on the journey of following my authority, which is sacral authority. In that year, it has taken me on a journey all around the world. I've collected so many pieces of myself, and everything I'm about right now is getting you whole. For me, the theme of this year is finishing whole. And I look forward to welcoming another 23 people into my programs this year as we finish whole together. So with that, we got a like. I love when the love comes in. So yeah, definitely keep commenting. This is interactive. We see you on Facebook. We've been on YouTube right now, but I see some new people coming in on Facebook as well. So welcome, welcome. And so you have just come in for the action-oriented part of this journey. We are talking about two different authorities. So as I walk through this, these are recommendations for both of y'all. If there's a specific recommendation for sounding board or for Lunar, I will call it out as we go through. And so remember, we're talking about feeling into that authority, doing some healing work. Healing is an acronym for me, and I'll tell you more about that later. Or just flowing with it on a day-to-day basis. So feel presence, 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 presence. Getting into our body is so important. It's really important for all authority types. But for this one, these authority types, we have so much interference from the outside world that knowing what is you and what is not you is exceptionally important. And when we cultivate a practice of presence, whether that's through like yoga, meditation, qigong, dance, like different ways, calming the mind and understanding what our body, what our energy feels like is going to be so beneficial. Mainly because we can see when we're in an anxiety loop, especially since these are more mental types of authority. The next thing I have is an environment audit, right? So for me, there are two things that are interesting. This is like human design 7.1, but my unconscious is a sounding board projector, if we wanted to say that. So I have had to learn about this type in so many ways to be able to unlock some of the gifts I have in my unconscious. One of my big ones being the channel of structuring. So sounding board is like me. Like if you had asked the people around me how I act up in the world, they say she talks a lot and sometimes she's talking to herself. And so for me, learning this authority type helps me massively. And I've been working with a client for a couple months through that. When we were talking about the environment audit, which I suggest for both of these types of authority, paying attention to your environment came up because she has been working a job for years and she was in the worst anxiety loop. It was at a horse show and it was a nightmare. And I said, oh my gosh, this is a gift. This is where we get to do your environment audit. And so she sat down because she really enjoyed what she was doing, but the how of it was all wrong. And she started to pay attention to every little element that was pulling her energy. And we started writing that down, writing that down, writing that down, writing that down, so that we could then bring that back into our bigger discussions. Then, next level, people audit. Your space and who's around you is so important. So that same exercise, you can do it for the people. And that may seem a little weird because traditionally we're not used to, we're told we're not supposed to judge people, right? And you're like, I'm trying to be judgmental, but curating your own personal oasis and your own personal space is extremely important. And so the environment audits, the people audits, those I like to really do them structure and literally say, I'm going to take either this experience, this moment, or I'm going to take the next 30 days and look at all of these and see, what I'm finding as I witness. It's so important to learn to be a witness with these kinds of authority. The next thing I love is your brand. Coming from the business standpoint, we have this question of what is my brand? Who am I? There is such amazing deep dive work you can do with your human design chart. So over the last month with this client I'm thinking of, we've really dug into all of the beautiful elements of her chart. We've gotten really good with her incarnation cross. We've gotten really good with her north node, south node. We've dug into those columns on the side. If you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And the beautiful thing that's come out of it is she's having more and more clarity around who she is and how she wants to show up. And so then we can use that as a metric for, okay, if this is who I am, this is how I want to show up? Is my environment matching that? Are the people that are around me matching that? We've also done a level of this in a more creative space of a mood board. What does that environment feel like? What does it look like? Can we get a picture of it? Can we put it up in front of us? I'm smiling because I have this beautiful picture of Jamaica, Portland, Jamaica, a painting from it right in front of me. And I look at that and that gives me an instant sense of that's what I want to feel like every day. And so having the visual of that is a really cool reminder so that when you're at work and you're feeling crazy and you look at that picture, you're like, ooh, there's a mismatch here. Okay. Specifically for my my sounding boards, we're going to move out of environment for a second and talk a little bit more about the sounding board process, right? Understand your process. Figure it out for yourself. For me, when I'm trying to activate those specific channels for me that act like that, I'll literally record myself or I'll listen to every single thing I record, which is funny because I'll record. I got into the habit of recording instead of writing personally, but I will record messages on my phone to my friends and I will re-listen to them. Jaclyn, I re-listen to a lot of our messages. I'll re-listen to them. I'll re-listen to the messages I sent on Instagram. I've started to, when I'll record a live, I'll watch that back. And this is the important part. It's not for critique. I'm looking for the gold in there. What are the intellectual ahas? What did I say really good? What was there? And some of that from a business perspective is digging out your core messages, but coming back to that, ooh, that felt good as I hear it back. Ooh, that didn't feel good as I hear it back. And so playing with figuring out your process can start with just yourself, listening to yourself and finding different and innovative ways of listening to yourself. The other thing I'll say is when we're working with another person, learning to finish the loop. Okay. So what I mean by this, when I'm coaching someone with soundboarding authority, the loop looks like I might give them something to respond to, then they will say something back, right? And then there might be an aha there, and we'll talk there might be an aha there, but there's also that repeating it after the fact that's really helpful too. And so sometimes I'll also talk and then it's a reflected back in your own words. So even when we'll get to a breakthrough or what seemingly is a breakthrough, we won't just leave it there. I'll say, okay, can we talk that back so that you can also reconnect with that breakthrough? But whatever your process is, don't be afraid to finish it, because what I've gotten to is that sometimes we'll want the sounding board. We'll need the sounding board. We'll start the process. But maybe we see that other person being like, oh God, is this person going to say this again? Or are we still on this topic? I thought we made that clear, right? I thought we talked about it. But sometimes you need to roll it back one more time. And having communication about that is extremely helpful. The other thing I recommend in terms of feeling this is a coach, right? So sometimes we can't find a friend or a coach, right? But either or, make sure the person that is there is not trying to infuse a certain thing for you. So if you're looking for a coach, I like to find coaches that aren't in a specific method, in a specific area, who aren't trying to teach you a specific skill, but are trying to help you find you. And who come in from a neutral standpoint of like, I don't have something I'm trying to put on you. Now, that's a little work to find that person, but when you do, it's gold, right? And sometimes that's in a friend, but I like the idea of bringing in a neutral party. And the reason why is because your friend comes with bias, period. Your friend grew up with you, your friend met you in a certain environment, your friend did something, but you're looking for an unbiased source who's there to listen and who doesn't need or want or have some expected outcome with you. All right. And then now going back to both types, creating your norms. Like, what is your ideal schedule? So when we come back, ideal schedule, ideal environment, creating your own norms. This is going to get us into shadow work a little bit, but this idea of what are the norms, the established norms I grew up with, that I was born into, and how much of my life right now consists of replicating known norms. We forget that we have choices on everything. Every little thing is a choice. And the beauty of this is when you unlock that part of your mind is so powerful and it can think of every single different iteration and you can really have fun with this. Like, you low-key get to design your life. That's a real choice, right? Now there are some things that come with that, but you have the choice. And so what are your norms that you're going to say, these are the ones for me? That gets us into heal. Heal is my framework for shadow work, abundance work. For the deep, deep shadow work, hit up Jaclyn. We're going to go in a very strategic way with our shadow work is what I would say. Now, human design will take you wherever you need to go, but we start with a purpose of creating and building your wonderland and sometimes working on business. And so from a heal perspective, we hold space, right? Hold space for our emotions, hold space for our conditioning, hold space for our feelings. Then we expand into a vision of what's possible for us. Then we figure out what the aligned actions are, and then we learn how to surrender because, like I said, your authority is going to take you where you need to go, and it may not be where you think we're going. And so for these specific authorities, I like to do healing in the areas of fitting in. Remember, you're a very small percentage of the world. So the way you walk in this world is going to be unique in some capacity. And depending on the conditioning we had around fitting in, that may be really difficult. I know for me personally, beyond the whole being like a Black woman in America and growing up and being in spaces where people didn't look like me, act like me, etc., there was kind of another piece of I was very in tune to like seeing things. And then I had this channel structuring that I didn't know how to use. And I would tell people what I saw. And so from a very young age, 7 actually, I remember crying to my mom. I don't have any friends, Mom. She would say your friend is the library. That was my mom for you. Your best friend is the library, right? And I would just like, I don't want the library, but I would cry and cry and cry because I didn't fit in. I didn't have any friends. And so much, and this has been like actually a really fun theme in my life for a while. But I can honestly tell you that so much of that was me not understanding my design and me wanting to have friends in the way I believed friends would be attracted to me. Since I've embraced my design, my whole world has changed. I low-key, I was telling Jaclyn, I was like, I don't know if I can handle another friend, right? Like, because I have deep, deep friends now, and I'm like, I don't know. Can I do this? Can I take this on, right? But people are being magnetized to me because now I know how I work. And so this deeper work of human design is huge, but in some of the categories specifically for shadow work, for these authorities are fitting in, you've been conditioned around making quick decisions. Making quick decisions is a big one, because if you believe you need to make quick decisions, but you have a lunar authority, right? Especially in business, this one comes up because people feel like the leaders are the decisive ones who make decisions in this way, and that's not how it works for y'all. Inherited family behaviors, big one too, huge one. Inherited family behaviors, like really thinking through the healing work on that, and setting boundaries. Setting boundaries. The other, I was gonna say the fun part, and it's fun when you look at it in hindsight, is that some of these deeper things that we're working on, and often most of the ones I'm talking about are interpersonal relationships. So when you're doing the work, I highly recommend having someone, a resource, a community, something that is a safe space container, because this work, straight up, it's hard, because you have to then deal with all the reactions from the people around you, and they're usually not great, because if you haven't been setting boundaries, if you've been living in norms that are the norms of all the people around you, now you're trying to be different, and you're just trying to be yourself, but it doesn't feel good, because sometimes it reflects back on the people who are around you. So all of that to say, the things I'm saying, they require patience with yourself. They don't always come with ease. And find some kind of safe space community, something to support you. And then there's a balance of that too, because we have some very open centers, right? And so we want to work around that. I keep trying not to say type, y'all, because it means something else in human design. It's driving me crazy, but we're working through it. Specifically for the sounding board authority, healing in the areas of talking a lot and taking up airspace. The amount of times I was told, I talk a lot, you talk a lot, you talk a lot. How much airspace do you want to take up? And then sometimes people think that like the world's supposed to be equal. And so if you talk, I'm supposed to talk, and it should be that doesn't really work with your authority. And so again, like healing in these areas, understanding them, being able to explain that to someone so that they can accept you and allow you to fully express is huge. All of this stuff for me comes back to this idea of home frequency, understanding what your home frequency is, so that when you are with others, you have a clear understanding of this is me and this is someone else. And sometimes we can't do that, but once we're a little bit out of that aura, we're like, oh crap, I see it right away. And then we can make those corrections quickly, right? We could get back on that phone and be like, actually, you know that thing I said? I'm gonna need some time. Give me 30 days, okay? That I'm going to disagree with Jaclyn on one thing. She said, we can't wait 30 days for, she's giving me the thumbs up, 30 days for coffee. So we're gonna get into flow next. In flow, we talk about how you continuously flow. One of the things I'm on is a lunar calendar right now. And so I'll do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So people legit have to wait 2 weeks for coffee. And that is possible sometimes. So I don't know that you need to use that to make the decision. And if you really are like, I don't know if I want to have coffee for this person, you can choose to use that to make the decision. So if you're there and you're like, I really don't know, and I don't want to make I don't want to make a decision that's not in alignment with this person, because that's a real, use your calendar. So coming into flow, one of the first things I have is like a lunar calendar or some kind of setup. This comes back to your norms that works for you so that you can have that space, have that time to get into your own flow. And so that you can have time away from all the energy of all the people. And so figure out what that pause looks like for you, if it's a pause, and it could be a daily pause. It could be a stretch of 2 weeks like me. It could be whatever it is. And I would recommend adopting some kind of shadow work, some kind of self-knowledge, self-study practice within that flow that you design for yourself. For me, and I don't have this authority, but I still do this, and I have a much more defined chart than Jaclyn, but I still do this, partly because one, because it's good and it's healthy. And then two, I have some detriments in my chart that make me a little bit more susceptible to conditioning. So I need it. So that's a real. But, but and I want to make sure I'm clear for my clients. So there's like that big piece, right? But all of this to say is, and so hopefully if you're sitting here like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, this makes you feel less alone because it's not just your authority. But coming up with something that gives me that clarity, that gives me that chance to go inside, that gives me more and more clues, that gets me more and more present with myself, that makes me understand what my home frequency looks like and is developing into. Because as I get better at this, and as you get better at this, you're going to keep growing. And there are going to keep being changes, and you're going to start learning more and more about you. You're going to start taking off layers and layers and layers of conditioning. And then all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing you. And that is going to require more little tweaks, more little changes, etc. Hopefully this sounds exciting and not exhausting. It may sound exhausting, and that's okay, because you get to take it at your own pace. And that's the point of this, like figuring out your own pace and honoring it, which means telling other people no, right? And making those choices for you. And they may be big life changes. They may be completely changing your career to support your authority. They may be completely changing your relationship with your partner. Love letter to your authority, right? I love this one. I use this one all the time. Write a love letter to your authority, because this is something that you're going to be living with for your whole life. And you want to start cultivating a loving relationship with it. And so I like to do it by first writing how I truly feel, right? And then, like, hey, authority, I hate you. If that's the real. I hate you right now. I don't feel like I can have regular conversations. I'm not fitting in with people. It's stressing me out, right? I'm not well received. How do I work through this? And then rewrite it in expansive languages. I love you. You're an amazing filter for me. I don't have to sit around with shitty people all day. I get to design my life in the way that I feel is most fit for me. I've learned how to cultivate an environment of peace for myself that most people don't have. And I don't have to stick to the norms that everyone has, whatever it is, right? Created an expansive language for you. You might need to read it in your times of distress if you have them. But the idea is that we're going to cultivate this relationship with our authority and learn to love it and learn to work with it. Cultivating surrender. Surrender is a big one with these, right? Surrender and patience, the patience to wait for that epiphany, if we want it to feel like, sometimes it feels like an epiphany, the clarity to come through, right? Knowing that that's coming and learning that surrender. Some of that for me, it's been a lot of finding people like, people that I really admire that work in this space. Some of that has been more of those presence practices, right? The yoga, the qigong, etc. Communication, clarity. So in this one, it's like, I need to let everyone that I'm interacting with on a regular basis understand how I communicate, understand my flow of decision making, so that they can give me the grace that I need so that we can work together. And so that's a big one. And if you're entering in business partnerships, that's a huge one. Have a plan for the timing. Have it be clear with them that this is just how you work. And people will accept that. I thought it was going to be very scary when I rolled out the like 2 week. Not at all. They were just like, oh, okay, that's what you're doing now. Cool. But they accepted it. I changed my Calendly and we're good. Right? Even with like group coaching clients. And they're like, oh, that's good. I'll have time to implement. Cool. That'll be great. You'll be better for me. Right? You'll be better for other people when you do this. The other thing I have is, so from a business standpoint, the coach thing we talked about, planning for timing, we talked about understanding your key messages is a big one, right? So as you're doing this work, collecting the things that are key for you. That one, I have that specifically for my sounding board, but that's for everyone. And then specifically for my sounding board authority, don't forget the invitation thing is a thing. So this is not just your authority, but we still have to remember your strategy. And so what I like to do, I'm typically a like in the moment person at all times. Jaclyn will tell you. But what I will do with my soundboard authority, and this is relevant to, I think, for lunar authority and just for anything, I will take a moment to project in the future just so that I can figure out what are the clarifying questions that need to be asked. Because having this clarifying question piece is really relevant to get the questions that you need or the data that you need, so that when you're going through, whether it's your mental process or that weight process, you have some data that will give you kind of additional clarity or at least something to respond or react to. All right. So those are all the tips in the areas of feeling into your authority, doing some healing work, and then flowing with it on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if I've said it yet in this session, but if you registered with email, so if you're coming, I know we have some people joining on Facebook. If you're just coming through this way, definitely register with email. You will have to, type in your email and your specific authority. You're going to get a guide that has all of this written up. And we're going to bring back Miss Jaclyn. Anything to add, Jaclyn?
I love how you framed all of that. If you have your head, your mind, your throat, any combination of those closed for sounding board authority, I've been building shadow work guides for all the different centers. So right now they're free. They're up on the Karmic Studies blog, and head, mind, and throat are all there. One of the things I was thinking about, because like, as you were talking, like the conditioning we receive about the sound of our own voice, the conditioning we receive about our ability to communicate, the conditioning we receive about how smart we are, our relationship to the word intelligent or stupid, like all of those can be such massive either barriers or obstacles or things we need to kind of untangle to be able to like really honor this as our authority. So just like remember when I was talking about sacral authority, I was like, I think I'm dead inside. I don't feel it. Like I have met folks with that are mental projectors that have been like, I don't know if I trust my brain. And it's like, oh, we got to cultivate that trust. So that would be a good place to kind of start if you're just beginning to like disentangle your idea of,
Yeah, that's why I had a big call out around inherited family behaviors and trauma, identity trauma.
Yes.
That's a big one in this one because it's like you're living a conditioned world, and then you have it's like to me it's like a double whammy of already being there and then having all of the things laid on top of you.
One of my clients was sharing that as a child, like when she would kind of chime in to give her opinion, she was shushed. She was told to shut up. Like, and so as an adult, now that she's trying to use her voice to make sense of her thoughts, like she does, like you start airtime, like she felt like, am I swallowing the air in the room? Am I being too much? And like untangling that was really helpful to kind of,
Someone literally told me there's limited airtime in the room. I want to say like a week ago.
Oof.
And I was laughing because I was just like, yeah, that's not going to work out. Like, and to that environment, I can be like, this is not someone that I can be my best around.
Yeah.
And
you deserve to be your best. And I think that's something to kind of, as a reflector and as a mental projector, you deserve the same amount of grace and agency and time and breath and space to make your decisions as those of us who just happen to have an authority that speaks to us a lot faster. Like same with emotional authority, that stuff can take folks with emotional authority. It can take weeks, it can take months, it can take years to really know how you feel about something. And the weight is almost like you're worthy of that. Like just because society privileges and preferences, like moving fast and blah, 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 you are definitely worthy of giving yourself the gift of the breath and the space and the time you need to process.
Awesome. Yeah. We have, I want to take 1 minute and just tell whoever about our programs. If anyone has any questions, definitely post them. We're aware that this is a much more rare type of authority. So definitely message us, reach out to us. We will answer questions, and definitely check out our offerings. If you're trying to work through this is one that's really helpful to have a guide, a coach, someone that can help you and check us all out from that perspective. And then Jaclyn, do you want to talk to them about karmic studies? And then I'll talk about Beeline for Wonderland, and we'll jump off this because we're coming up on the hour.
Yeah, and I have to go work with a client in a few minutes. So karmic studies is a 6-month container that I built to do this really deep, intensive shadow work, deconditioning, because that is kind of the whole premise of human design. It's supposed to be an experiment of what happens if we actively engage with all of these ways that we're wired, right? And start kind of making conscious decisions about what we want to lean into, what we want to lean away from. So this 6-month container is literally for folks who are doing this process and this journey. There's a mix of community where we're walking this path through the Shadowlands together, but there's also individual content tailored to your specific chart. We go in a very specific sequence, but basically we're working together to empower ourselves and each other to really step into the most aligned expression of our energy that we can.
I love that. Beeline for Wonderland is a similar program, but very different in that we're not focused on the self-discovery as much. We obviously do a lot of self-discovery because we're also doing human design, but the goal is to actively be in that process of building your Wonderland. And so you'll come in, we'll do the work of digging into your chart, and then we'll use very specific sets of gates and channels to make determinations around what our magic recipe is and building our magic container for business that gets to expand with us as we learn about ourselves and make money together. So with that, we are going to wrap it up for today and wrap it up for the authority conversations. We finished
all 6. 8 authority, 6 hours, 3 days. It was awesome though. I love talking with you. Yes, I always love talking with you.
Yeah, me too. And so if you're watching this and you're like, you know what? There's 98% of the world that's different than me, then feel free to check out the other ones because you'll learn so much about how people maybe are responding to you and how you can work better with other people, which is what we're about here at Energy Ergonomics. And definitely like and subscribe. We love you. Have the most amazing day. Bye.
Bye.